Alright guys, welcome to part 4 of my C# free course. Now we're getting into classes, object-oriented programming. This is the beginning of it. So, a class is a group of code items, I guess you can call it. We'll get to that more in a bit, but they can be used as a template or blueprint to create objects. And classes are also within curly braces like this. So something familiar, we already have something called class. So in here, we've already been working with classes this whole time. The other video before this one, we were talking about methods, another word for functions, but in C# we talk about methods. So this is a method, and methods are inside of our classes. And in the last video, we used to make more methods. We would put another static void out here with like messages or multiply, and we would create this like string with arguments that we could call upon and invoke within our other method block. But in this one, we're going to be talking about classes, so now we're going to create a new class. We're going to name this hotel messages. Let's say you own your own hotel. And we're going to do void. Void is creating a method. So just like here, it says static void. And you could take out static if you want, but by default, main is always using a static void. And for this example, we're going to just do void to invoke these methods. So void greeting. We have our greeting method. And this one's going to say, greetings, welcome to our hotel. And then we'll do another one called check-in. And this one's going to say, thanks for checking in. We hope you enjoy your stay. Then we'll do checkout. C# already predicted what I was going to write. Then we'll do, we hope you've enjoyed your stay. So here's the 3 different voids under our class. We can call this class within our other class from our main method by doing hotel messages dot, and as you can see, if I type in greeting, that's not an option. And that's not an option because I need to make it public. So it's got to be a public static void. And now I can reference it. So now if I do console app, it's going to be running through my main method and calling upon this greeting. So it says, hello, welcome to our hotel. Now we can leave this as is. Or we can make our main file look a bit cleaner and put our functions, our methods, into a different file that we just call it from. So you can do this by going under View, going to Solution Explorer, which opens up this right-hand side here. Now we right-click on our console app, go under Add, click on Class, and I'm going to name my class Hotel Messages. We'll click Add here, and this created a new file here. And this new file uses a bunch of system stuff. We've created a new namespace, and we've created an internal class. So we're going to grab this, and we're going to go over to Hotel Messages, and paste it in here. And we can go ahead and delete the class now out of our main file. We don't need this anymore. So now in order to call hotel messages greeting the way that we did before, it's because we have to come back over here and do public static void. And we come back here and we could do our greeting and we'll run this in our console app. And you can see now it's accessing our method and our class from our other file. So now let's talk about objects. Objects are instances of a class, and objects can have fields and methods. What are those? A field is a characteristic, and a method is an action. So as we know already, methods are like functions. So a method is something that something can do. So an example of that is like a microwave, alright? The field of a microwave is it's a square box with a door and buttons. The method of a microwave is that it heats up food. Then we've got a horse. The field of a horse is it has 4 legs, long neck, big head, hairy. And the method is it gallops, neighs, and eats hay, and farts. That's what horses do. That's what they're designed to do. So now we're going to go ahead and create some objects to get into the weeds of object-oriented programming. So we'll create an object here. In order to create an object, we're going to make another class. So our class is going to be cat. And our cat is going to have a name and an age. So these are our fields. Now let's create the methods, the actions. So one action that a cat can do is meow. We could do name is meowing, or we could do string interpolation and call it like that. What else do cats do? They also purr. So we'll do console write line, name is purring. We can also do an age check. So we can do age check, console write line, name is age years old. So here is our class. Cat is our object. The class is the object. So the class, the object, has 2 fields and 3 methods. It has 2 characteristics and it has 3 actions. So now in our main function block, we can work with this. We can do cat1 equals new cat. So what are we doing here? We're creating an object. We're creating an object that's cat. Cat has all of this stuff. But we're creating a unique cat. So this is cat1. And cat has all the stuff that cat as an object has. We're saying it's a new cat. So cat1 is the new cat on the block. And we can actually just give it a name. We don't have to name it cat1. We can name it, let's say, kitty. But this isn't where you would name it, because this doesn't set the name down here. So cat1 is just the identifier of the new object that we're creating, which is a cat. In order to give it a name, we would have to do cat1 dot name equals kitty. This is how you would name the cat. But as you can see, there's a red little squiggly line, and that's because class is not public. And it's not a good practice to make public inside of a class, but for learning purposes, we're just going to do public class cat. And we don't have to make the whole class public. Instead, we could just put public in front of all the variables that we want to manually make public. So now we can name the cat Kitty, and cat1 age is going to be 1. And we can enable cat1 by doing meow. Cat1, we can make it purr. And again, we just have to do public void here. And we could do an age check against the cat. So now if I print this out into the console app, Kitty is meowing, Kitty is purring, Kitty is 1 year old. And now we can make another cat. We can do cat2. It's also going to be a new cat. And let's say cat2, the name is Sparkles. And Sparkles is 5 years old. And we'll do an age check against cat2. So now if I run this, it says Kitty is meowing, Sparkles is purring, Kitty is 1 year old, Sparkles is 5 years old. So in object-oriented programming, we also have something called constructors. Constructors are a special method in a class and can have the same class name. They can be used to assign arguments to fields when creating objects. And remember what fields are? Fields are characteristics. And methods are actions. So to create a constructor, we create the constructor. Let's get rid of all this for a second. We create the constructor down within the object itself. So along with all these other methods, we create the constructor the same way we'd create any other method. So we do public cat string, we're going to pass in the name, and just like that, it's already auto created it for me. Wow. So it's auto created cat, putting the string name here, the integer of the age here, and it's saying this name is going to equal to name, and this age is going to equal to age. So what this is saying here is, back before here, we had cat1.name equals kitty. And we had cat1.age equaled 1. Right? But what if there was a easier way to do this? Instead of having 3 lines take up creating the cat, then giving it a name, then giving it an age, what if we can undo it all in 1 line? And that's what the constructor's for. The constructor's creating a base level foundation so that we can basically just comment these 2 out, and then instead put in the string name here as kitty and the age. And now we can create cat2, new cat, Sparkles is 5. And then we can do the same thing, cat1 meow, cat2 purr, cat1 dot age check, and then here's the same thing. And as you see from here, it says public void meow. And this whole time we've been using static void. So now is the time that we're going to be talking about static. What's this static thing mean? Well, static is modified to declare a static member, which belongs to the class itself rather than to any specific object. That means down here where we're creating the cats, we can say that every single time we're checking for the name and the age of the cat, that we're also going to do a new integer or a new variable called number of cats, and we'll do plus plus. We're going to declare this up here, public int number of cats. And up here, as we're doing the meows and the purring and the age checks, we're going to write out the console line, cat1, number of cats, and cat2 dot number of cats. So this will return to us 1 and 1. See, we're trying to keep track of how many cats are coming through. We've got Kitty and we got Sparkles. So it's saying Kitty 1, Sparkles 1. So it's saying we have one cat here and one cat there. But we don't want a 1 for every single cat that comes in. We want the sum to add up to how many cats there are. I want it to tell me that there's 2 cats, not one cat there and one cat there. It doesn't make any sense. So tell me how many cats there are without telling me there's one over there, there's one over there, there's one over there, you know. So that's because we have to update the int number of cats to static, because each cat has their own instance of this number. So if you want them to add them together, we're going to have to make this a static. So we do that by doing public static int. And as you can see, now that we're using static on the number of cats, this doesn't work anymore, because now we have to just write cat. And now cat is going to be the one that calls out all of the cats. Because think about it, before we just had cat 1 and cat 2 in 2 separate lines. So of course it's only going to count one cat there, one cat here. So we need to group all the cats together and just call upon the object name as a whole. So now that we run the console app, now it gives us 2. Let's get away from cats for a bit, because I know I'm allergic to them a little bit, even though I have a couple. And we'll be talking about inheritance. So inheritance is where we create a class or an object, and we create another class as a child of that object. The class that we create it from is the parent. The class we create it to is the child. So the child class can use the fields and methods of the parent class, but not vice versa. So the child inherits it from the parent, but the parent does not inherit other things from the child. So what does this mean? In order to know what it means, we got to create some more classes. So let's create some classes. We got a class here called longsword. Alright, so the longsword, we've got a public integer damage. The public integer, the longsword does 10 damage points. And then we've got a public method of stab. So a long sword, you can stab with it. Just like that. And now let's say we create another class called short sword. Now a short sword can also stab, right? So in order for the short sword to stab, we can create a void again, or we can just inherit it from the long sword, since the long sword already has the functionality that we're looking for. So here, now that it has longsword, we don't need to create the void. We can just edit the damage, and that's the only thing we need to change. So a short sword does 6 damage. And we can still stab with it without specifying that we want to stab with it. Now we have another one, dagger. A dagger can also stab. And we can also modify the damage of it. So damage is 5. And then we can also create another class down here called hammer. Now you can't stab with the hammer. So the hammer, we're going to create a completely different set of traits for it. Damage 12. And we'll do public void. Instead of stab, we're going to do smash. And we'll do console right line smash. And you know what? Let's just give short sword its own little unique ability. And that ability is going to be slice. So let's say you can only slice with a short sword. So now we have 4 classes. We have a long sword that has a damage of 10 and you can stab with it. You have a short sword that has inherited everything else from the long sword, including the damage, which is why we're getting this little green thing here, saying, hey, we're already inheriting the damage, and you've created this new damage parameter here, saying it's overwriting the damage of longsword. Because if we were to take out this line, it would mean that short sword's going to do a damage of 10. And if we wanted to keep the damage of the longsword, all you would have to do is type in longsword.damage. But there's a couple extra steps to that, but we're not going to focus on that right now. So we'll leave this as is, and up towards the top, we can test out the inheritance. So we can call upon our longsword, and we can name it katana. We'll create a short sword, wakizashi. We'll create a dagger, a tanto, and we'll create a hammer. And you see that a katana can now stab. It can stab, and a wakizashi can also stab. A wakizashi can also slice. A dagger can stab. No, sorry, not dago. Tanto. A tanto can also stab, and a cudgel can smash. See, the wakizashi is the child of the katana, and this child has its own unique ability, which is slice. It has inherited stab from the parent, but the parent does not inherit the qualities of the child. So the parent cannot slice just because the child can. So that is inheritance.